So you found the skeleton. How would you tell it's a dinosaur? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Jackson with Jackson 27, I think? 27? 17? Yeah, there it is, 17. I vastly overestimated. Although still, we've been doing this for over a year, Jackson. It's kind of crazy. Well over a year. Yeah. And in fact, I know there's been a few months where we didn't have one, so it's even more time than it really seems like. So, yeah, it's pretty amazing. Also, Soulcat, who's been a member for 2 months and is at the amniote level, says, is this going to be stars can't form because of the ideal gas law? Yeah, almost certainly. Also, Godzilla, Vishanti, and Plodge Tunicate. Well, I like 2 of those things, so we will take a drink for the Godzilla emoji, thank you very much. And then we will get into some of the drinking rules after I introduce Jackson, but just know that Soulcat triggered one of them. And I have a nice Belgian white beer here. Jackson, how are you today? Oh, wait, hold on. I think you are muted. Hold on, give me a second.
Oh.
Jackson, how are you today? Try again.
I'm doing all right.
Okay.
My day was productive.
Productive, I like that.
Yeah, me too.
So, today we are here to continue talking about why is it stars can't form. Now, if you remember, Jackson, last time we made it through almost the entire episode, going through like 13 minutes worth of Charles Jackson before we even got to stars.
Yeah.
We only barely got to stars at the very end of the first episode, but there's still plenty of dumb stuff to talk about. So
Correct. It is Charles Jackson.
Yeah, so by the way, everybody, yes, there is a new emoji, although it is actually replacing an old emoji. Basically, I picked an emoji that no one was using, and I replaced it with a Vishanti React emoji, because that way on Saturdays, if people want to reference her via emoji rather than typing out her name or something, y'all can do that. So, there you go. And the Fearmonger Official has linked a bingo card if you want to play along with bingo instead of just the drinking game. But let's go into the rules. So, as we already saw, if anyone membership milestone chats or super chats, any chat that contains one of the 3 kaiju emojis, that's Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, we take a drink for that. Now, you have to be a channel member to do that. If you want to become a channel member, there's a couple options. The easiest and most reliable way is to simply click the join channel button down below this video. However, you may also wait for anyone to gift memberships, and then they are distributed somewhat randomly, but who gets them is weighted by how much you participate in the chat. So if you're looking to get one of those from one of the gift subscriptions, be active in chat. Now, we will take a drink for every gift subscription gifted. We will also take a drink whenever Charles Jackson says something that's just too stupid. Whenever he gets something right that he's not just quoting from someone else, it actually has to come out of his own brain. We tend to get pretty generous with that when as time goes on. Let's see. Too Young to Feel This Old for $5 says, watching Dapper drinking beer and 3D printing a set of Mandalorian armor. Today is a good day. That does sound cool. Just make sure that once it's printed, you never take the helmet off. Ever. Somehow.
This is the way.
Yeah, this is the way.
Like, actually, they can take it off. They just can't do it in front of other people. Because they do it to eat.
Okay, fair enough. You have to eat in private from now on.
Yes.
Yeah. Does that mean they have to leave it in while they're, getting down and dirty with other Mandalorians or whatever?
I assume so.
The helmet stays on.
The helmet stays on, god dang it.
It's quite the thing right there.
You are,
also, Too Young to Feel This Old just gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. They went to Snorefoot, Robert Adsit, Ian Debunked, Dragon Spartan 90 Official, and Vesta Freya. So we will take 5 drinks. Thank you very much. Too Young to Feel This Old. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So thank you very much. Okay. So we will also take a drink if the creationist, in this case Charles Jackson, tells a story that didn't happen. This is based on our best judgment. Or tells a joke that didn't land. Or, of course, it's been a while, but we also take a drink anytime Jackson Wheat laughs just during the explanation of the drinking game.
Oh.
we take a drink for that. We will also take a drink if Jackson or I can successfully predict what Charles Jackson is going to say next, provided it's not clear what that's going to be. If it's very obvious, then it doesn't really matter.
I just think it's like I can't imagine telling a story like about myself that just didn't happen and passing it off as truth.
Well, you're not a young Earth creationist, so you're not as used to being dishonest as they are.
I guess that's true.
I just lost my train of thought.
I'm sorry. My bad.
We will also take a drink. This is a new one. This came about just recently. There's a new drink trigger, which is called Trojan Source, which is to say, if the creationist cites a source, and we check the source, and the source directly contradicts the point that the creationist is trying to make, we take a drink for that. And boy, did we do that a lot for Randy Galuza.
Yeah.
Like every single one of Randy's sources directly contradicted his point. At one point, he said that there was a specific beetle subfamily that would undergo like an adult, like after reaching the imago stage, would then go through like a second metamorphosis to become myrmecoid. And the actual paper that he cited was about how a myrmecoid morphology as an imago had evolved multiple times within this beetle subfamily, and that only certain species shared a common ancestor that was itself myrmecoid. And there was nothing about adults morphing.
I just he's the guy who is like Genesis Apologetics like riffs on him, right? Because the Big Wave Dave dude did the did that also with the CET, where he's like, yes, this fish it loses its eyes if it's raised in a dark environment. Where the paper he cites, like,
it's literally the opposite.
Like, the literal sentence, but does not.
Right? Yeah, it's the literal opposite. It's amazing. No, Randy Galuza is like that a lot, and the Big Wave Dave and the others at Genesis Apologetics are getting it from him. Like
Crazy.
Genesis Apologetics is not a group that is producing their own arguments. In fact, they mix up mutually contradictory arguments from different creationist organizations.
Oh, like the one where they said mesonychids don't exist? Like that one?
Yeah, I remember that. Mesonychids just didn't exist. What are these fossils?
Nope.
Don't worry about it. Goodness. It's so amazing. It's like, what's this a skull of if mesonychids don't exist? What is this?
Skull? I don't see a skull.
Exactly.
There's no skull here.
They just said they were the hypothetical ancestors of whales that never existed. Oh, okay.
Oh.
Anyway. We also will take a drink if anyone super chats anything to the effect that AIG, that's Answers in Genesis, are a bag of dicks. And that is because of their habit of being absolute copyright abusers. They will like to copyright claim, to be fair, not as bad as striking, but claim just about anything that uses any of their footage. So, you can come up with something clever to say that, because again, YouTube will censor you if you just say AIG is a bag of dicks. You gotta be clever about it. However, if you're a channel member, we do provide you with an AIG bag that contains a bunch of eggplants to make that easier. So there you go. All right, Jackson, are you ready for more Bad Jackson?
As ready as I'll ever be.
All right. We were just told, we're talking about the nebular collapse hypothesis of star formation. Charles Jackson, I think, is about to tell us why that can't work for some reason.
All right.
Gravity cannot do this, and we'll see why. A star is born when the contracting gas and dust becomes so hot that nuclear fusion starts. Now, most people don't realize, we got some biochem majors here, maybe they know.
By the way, in case you haven't seen any of the most recent Jackson videos, I don't know why, but for some reason, these talks at Arizona State University were filmed at like 4 FPS on a potato. So and also with bad audio sync. So like, you just got to deal with it. Sorry.
I got three of you. Well, okay, biological sciences there. Oh, Laura, yes. The first original nuclear bomb was an atomic bomb, a fission bomb.
Yes.
Now, later we got the thermonuclear bombs, the hydrogen bombs, which were fusion bombs, 200 to 500 times stronger than the bombs at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. These are fusion reactions. To get a good fusion reaction going, you got to heat it up to about 1,000,000 degrees. 1,000,000 degrees, maybe 100,000 would do, but 1,000,000 degrees. The only thing that we knew at the time that could do that was a fission bomb. The fuse on a fusion bomb, on a thermonuclear bomb, is a fission bomb. You have to use an A bomb to get an H bomb hot enough to go off. That's pretty hot. So how hot does the gas and dust
Okay, guys. Hey, if you have big number, therefore God in your bingo card, I think that just qualified. I really hate
okay.
Oh, big numbers exist in nature, therefore... Savage Cobra Kinda Official asks, can the potato run Doom? Okay, so, interestingly enough, I did once watch a guy install and run Doom on a Raspberry Pi powered by potato batteries, and it required like 50 pounds of potatoes, and he had to wait for them to start rotting, because otherwise they didn't have enough like concentration of the various acids that he needed to actually use them as batteries. So he sat there in a garage full of rotting potatoes wired up in series, connected to a Raspberry Pi, so that he could play Doom run by potato power. It was very strange. Hivesci,
something.
Yeah. Hivesci, who's been a member for 2 months and is at the amulet level, says, AID did a false claim on my Samurai Crab video. Yeah, I'm not at all surprised. Did you? Yeah, it is. AIG is the worst. We'll take a drink for that, because it's another example of why they are a dick, even if Bree didn't actually say the words. Well, good luck getting that resolved. I doubt they'll sue you if you contest it. But that's also not legal advice.
To be at least 100,000 degrees, probably 1,000,000 degrees, to ignite nuclear fusion chain reactions.
Okay, let's talk about nuclear fusion chain reactions here, shall we? So, Jackson, do you happen to know what gets released in a hydrogen-hydrogen fusion?
Heat.
Heat is a big part of it. I mean, also a helium comes out the other end, right?
Sure. Are there any like other subatomic particles that?
Yeah, there's neutrons come out of that reaction.
Okay.
So the question then is, okay, which of those induces fusion in other hydrogen atoms? Because the claim here is that hydrogen fuses into helium, a neutron and energy. A photon, basically. That's what that energy comes out as, is photon. High energy photon.
Okay.
None of those induce fusion in other hydrogen. So the reason we talk about nuclear chain reactions, right? We usually talk about this in the form of either nuclear power or nuclear weapons like fission bombs, right? So what happens is when certain fissile nuclides, fissile just means can undergo nuclear fission, right? So most nuclei aren't fissile, but ones that are, some of them can have induced fission, whereas what happens is a neutron hits the nucleus with the right energy to, instead of simply smashing through, be absorbed into the nucleus, which then makes the nucleus less stable, inducing fission in a large fraction of the nuclei that have neutrons so absorbed.
Is that's one of the beta decays?
No, fission is actually splitting up into numerous nuclei. A beta decay would be a neutron turning into a proton and releasing a electron, or so a proton turning into a neutron and releasing a positron. And there are beta
captures a neutron.
Yeah, so in this fission chain reaction, right? So normally what happens is whenever a nucleus fissions, in addition to the different nuclei, it also tends to release a number, it's stochastic, but a number of neutrons. And these are called fast neutrons because they have high energy and they have a relatively long free mean path, which basically means, on average, how long does each neutron go between being emitted and being absorbed by something? That's the mean free path. So in nuclear reactors, they are moderated by something. Sometimes it's graphite, sometimes it's water, whatever. Which basically means they undergo a series of reactions where they kind of bounce off of other nuclei, which causes them to lose energy. You can say slow down, although it's not really true. We do call them thermalized or slow neutrons, but whatever. And then that gives them the right level of energy to be absorbed into nuclei. And this is why it's a chain reaction, right? Each fission releases neutrons, which themselves can go on to cause new fissions. Fusion doesn't do this. Fusion is a spontaneous reaction that happens to this hydrogen when it's simply under enough pressure and heat. That's it. There's no chain reaction that gets set off. So, I don't know what Charles Jackson is talking about, because that's not how fusion works. The reason fusion is so powerful is that, pound for pound, it does release more energy, and if you can get a fusion bomb to have a large amount of fusion in a small space in a small amount of time, by using an explosive that forces the fusible material into an extremely small space and heats it up, which, a nuclear bomb could do, then yeah, that releases a whole bunch of power. But it's not because it's a chain reaction. So, there we go. Alright, here we go.
Is this statement based on science or based on belief?
Okay, hold on. We have to ask the chat. Okay, start your poll. Is fusion in stars based on science or belief? Which is a weird question because belief isn't like a contrast with science. We're going to have yes, no, and turtles, if I can spell correctly. There we go. Midcourse says I wouldn't have put Vishanti next to Kent, though. Look, 2 emojis had to go next to Kent. There's nothing I can do about it. Sorry. Alright.
Well, have we ever seen this happen? No. We do know from our own experiments here on Earth the temperatures that are capable of igniting helium. We even use deuterium.
Okay, don't call it igniting helium, because what that means is you're setting helium on fire. Also, you can't ignite helium because it's non-flammable. You mean hydrogen. I'm taking a drink. That's way too dumb. I can't with this guy. Goodness.
And,
No, wait. When he says we just believe in, did he say we just believe in fusion in stars?
Basically. Also, the Fearmonger official points out that's not a yes or no question. You're right. I'm glad you noticed that. I made it as stupid as the question was. The answers are just as stupid as the question.
But we know that's what the sun does.
Yes. Well,
right?
Maybe we do. Maybe we'll find out that that's not the case. Of course, the majority of people, 68%, voted turtle, which is the correct answer, because there is no incorrect answer, but turtles is the correct answer.
Okay.
Oh yeah, and Tesla Ranger is reminding us of the time that Ali G interviewed Kent Hovind and accused him of not flushing the toilet after taking a dump. Oh yeah, it was hilarious. Have you not seen the Ali G Kent Hovind interview?
I'm afraid to even ask.
Oh, Jackson, that's a problem. You gotta watch that.
I try to watch as little Kent Hovind material as possible.
Okay, but this is Ali G
making
Kent
debate
Hovind extremely uncomfortable.
And Dan's recent debate, or are exceptions.
Okay, that's fair. Well, thank you. I appreciate that we're exceptions.
Also, that time that Mr. ID went on Kent Hovind's show, and then Kent Hovind faked having technical problems to leave.
I don't think I've seen that one. I might need you to send that to me.
Oh dear.
All right, because look,
anyway.
Mr. Intelligent Design is a special kind of crazy. Even Kent is I don't understand what's happening right now.
I wonder what happened to that dude. Oh well.
In case anyone is wondering, Mr. ID thought that he had cracked the problem of intelligence in the creation of the universe by dropping an egg through successive layers of tissue paper. And I do not understand how any of that works, but for him it was a brilliant experiment. So anyway.
Yeah, that was one morning I'll never get back.
Jackson, I've watched that thing so many times because it's so
Neither
hilarious.
will Aaron, in fairness.
Yeah, no. Aaron was just like, what is going on? All right.
Actually, I think he like rage quit.
I mean, I don't blame him. All right, here we go.
Yeah.
Tritium, but just how about just regular hydrogen, protium? How could we get those things to actually start the fusion? What would the temperature and pressure need to be? Well, the temperature's coming from gravity pulling the gas cloud together. The contracting gas will heat up. Now, this is just chemistry 101. This is Charles's law of pressure and temperature.
Charles Jackson's law.
Yes, Charles Jackson law. Also, it's not just, that like if you compress a gas, it gets hotter. There's also just the fact that this is the potential energy being converted into kinetic energy and then being converted into thermal energy. If you just use like the ideal gas law to try to figure out how hot this interstellar nebula is going to get if you compress it into a star, it's not going to work. It's actually going to be significantly hotter than that, because the ideal gas law, which basically relates pressure and volume to temperature, does not take into account changes in potential energy. Whereas that is where a lot of this energy is coming from. Because if you have something with the mass of a star, but it's diffuse into, like half a light year of half light year radius diffuse clouds of atoms, those things have a lot of potential energy relative to each other. So, yeah, I think that might be one of the problems that we're going to come up with. He's going to start assuming like ideal gas laws that don't work because this is far from an ideal gas.
Yeah. Also, don't those work for like closed systems, right?
Yeah. Well, so it only works for closed systems, and it also only works if the particles of the gas have no intermolecular action.
Okay.
So Protium, by the way, because I was asked, is basically it's the most common of the isotopes of hydrogen. So it's the 1 proton, 1 neutron versus hydrogen. And then you get deuterium and tritium, 2 neutrons. Let's see. Snorfoot, who's been a member for 6 months and is at the ambient level, says AIG is a big bag of briny bacon bits. Nice. Take a drink of that. So yeah, protium is a thing. He did say it correctly.
Squeezed, it gets hotter. When a gas is released, it gets colder. That's how your air conditioner works.
I've never heard that called Charles's law. That's the ideal gas law. If you've heard the ideal gas law called Charles's law, let me know, please, because maybe that's a thing and I just don't know about it. But I mean, I've taken a fair few physics classes, not that I'm great at physics, but like that was always the ideal gas law.
Refrigerator works. But when you squeeze it...
Hey, we'll take a drink though. That is how your refrigerator works. It does work on the basis that expanding gas is cool. So, look, we have to be generous with the young Earth creationists about when it is that they get things right. Otherwise, we'll never drink for getting things right.
Gas, it gets hotter. But hot gases, do they want to continue contracting, or do hot gases want to expand? They want to expand.
Almost like maybe that's the reason that stars don't just collapse into black holes immediately. Weird.
That's again, that's Charles's law. That's the combined gas law. When you put Charles and Boyle together, and you get the ideal gas equation.
Oh, okay. There you go.
That hot gases expand. And it turns out that expansion is much, much greater than the force of gravity. Gravity is the weak.
By the way, Royland Hutchins for $2 sends a Mothra emoji, so we'll take a drink. And then sends a Kent Hovind get bent set of emojis, followed by an AIG is a bag of dicks emoji, and we'll still, we already drank for the chat, but also a fwing emoji. If you guys don't know about fwings, go back and watch the back catalog of Dapper Reacts, because, yeah, fwing is a thing. Here we go.
Because of the 4 known forces of the universe. Next to it being electromagnetic force, and then gravity is the weakest. I mean, come on. For gravity to have enough to do this, you need a solid rock 8,000 miles thick.
That's going to be a citation needed there. I need to see a citation on that. Where's my citation needed? The
Not
update.
second.
That's not it. That's the wrong thing. There it is. Citation. Oh, goodness. That was the non sequitur. Your facts are uncoordinated bit from Star Trek. Probe. Good episode.
And that little probe that landed on that asteroid, it bounced, and it had to bounce 3 times before it would finally stick to the asteroid by gravity, because the asteroid's gravity was so low. You need huge.
Okay, Jackson, what do you think has more mass? A stellar mass cloud of hydrogen or a small asteroid?
I'm gonna have to go with the former.
Right, because I already said stellar mass.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Just checking, right?
I also am not the best at physics.
Well, okay, but I gave you the hint by saying stellar mass.
I mean, star sounds bigger than, little asteroid
Yeah.
in general.
We'll just take a
so.
drink for Charles Jackson not understanding how mass works at the most basic level. This is literally like Charles Jackson getting it wrong as to which is heavier, a pound of lead or a pound of feathers. And he's like, it was a pound of lead, obviously. No, Jackson. No, it's not. I'm sorry, Bad Jackson. That's not how that works. Goodness.
Masses to get even a teeny bit of measurable or meaningful gravity. Actually, although I know that you two are just friends, gravitationally you are attracted to each other.
Oh my goodness, I'm taking a drink for that joke. Jokes that didn't land. I know one person chuckled, but that was so cringy. Okay.
I think Mel Gibson made a joke like that in Man Without a Face. But
That doesn't help.
Why? It's like why women hang out. The boy asks him like, why are women always hanging out together? And he's like, well, females have more mass, so there's a greater gravitational pull between them. And the boy's like, yes, this makes sense.
That is the worst, dumbest thing.
I thought it was
Especially
kind of funny.
since on average, female humans tend to have less mass than male humans. On average.
Just a little teeny bit, because those two masses aren't that great, not compared to a whole planet. Okay, so I'm saying that this is based on belief, which again is okay. It's okay to have the belief that somehow the
I don't
laws
understand
of
how he
some-
went from talking about mass to just saying therefore this is a belief.
Yeah, no, he's basically just saying, I don't see how it could be done. So therefore, you can't say that you know it for any good reasons. You just have to believe it on faith. Because what he's really meaning when he says believe is believe on faith. Or believe without good reason, which you could argue is a definition for faith.
So how does he think the sun works then?
I'm going to have to say that he thinks that the sun was created as is de novo, ex nihilo, all the other Latin phrases that you might use, by God in a situation that couldn't come about naturally. It's sort of like, Kurt Wise's Floating Forest, where he's like, well, these couldn't have come about, these couldn't have formed naturally. So I think God just created them in place. Like, oh, that's convenient.
Well, because I know Matt Powell thinks the sun is burning.
I don't
Right,
think
it's-
Charles Jackson thinks that, because he did talk about fusion, so he does seem to know that it's fusion and not literal fire.
Okay. All right.
Jake Nelson for $5 says, don't want to fall asleep because I'd miss you, babe, and I don't want to miss a fling. Nice. No, I'm not going to sing it. Jackson, would you like to?
I'd like to hear you sing it.
Okay. No. No one else would like that.
What if I give you $1?
Then I would thank you for the $1 and still not sing it.
Well, I'm not giving you that $1 then.
Okay, I won't take it then.
circumvented by some new principle we've never discovered yet,
Called gravity.
and we've never seen it actually do its thing, but we want to believe it anyway. There's nothing wrong with belief, just don't teach it like it's a fact and we got it down, because we don't.
Okay, look, there are aspects of stellar formation that are currently not well explained. I mean, that is a fact. But it's a gravity-driven phenomenon, and the idea that we just haven't seen gravity and we don't know how it works is crazy enough that I'm just gonna take a drink. No, that's not a thing. Also, hey, we're taking a drink for Mothra, who just popped in audibly. So I don't know if anyone heard it, because I think I have my phone too far away from the microphone. But it happens. We're taking 2 drinks. Here's one. And here's the other. Which means, time to open up the second beer. So give me a second while I pour my second beer. You want to make sure you get a good pour on your beer, not too much head. I say if you have more than, if you have more than a monolayer of bubbles, you've done it wrong, in my opinion.
Never mind. I'm not going to finish that sentence.
Okay. But yes, the amount of bubbles when you finish your beer pour should be no more than 1 bubble thick. It should be at most 1 bubble than the surface of the beer. If you have enough bubbles that 2 bubbles can stand on top of each other, you did it wrong.
Really?
Yes, I'm standing by it. I'm sticking by it, like I'm sticking to my guns, that pancrustacea is a made-up nonsense, stupid word, just like Sedardiadactyla. You will not get me to change my mind on this anytime soon.
Nobody does. Let's take a look. Again, Marilyn Beausavant, one of my favorite people, says, we must be careful not to teach theory.
Okay, the low frame rate is one thing. The bad audio sync is one thing. But the frames not even being in order. How do you do that? How does that happen? What software was used that got the frames out of order? I'm just taking a drink because I cannot handle just how poor quality the video is from a technical standpoint. This is amazing. Oh my goodness. Okay.
As a fact, it slows scientific progress immeasurably. She has that article.
I wonder what she was referring to specifically.
I don't know.
Because it probably wasn't what he's referring to.
Oh, look, here's her credentials. Most famous Menson.
So she's in the same group that he is.
Yeah, so she's just in the, hey, we gave you a card for doing well on an IQ test club. You know what being a member of Mensa means for your contribution to the thought of humanity? Literally nothing. Doesn't make you right about anything.
But her name has savant in it.
I mean, good for her.
It's destiny.
Yeah. No. I'm taking a drink for just Mensa as a valid credential for you to criticize science. Look, I'm not saying that you can't criticize a scientific theory without being, having the right credentials and whatnot. However, if you go around using a bad credential as a reason people should believe you, I will absolutely call that out. And that's what's happening. Now, I don't know if Marilyn Vos Savant is doing that herself, although I suspect she is, because otherwise, why would anyone listen to her about anything in particular? But it's certainly what Charles Jackson is doing with her.
Magazine.
Parade Magazine. Remind me, Jackson, is that a peer-reviewed publication?
At the very least, it's not one I'm familiar with.
Okay.
Okay. Heated gases want to expand. Stellar evolution can't be real because gravity can't contract a cloud of space gas into a star against its pressure to expand when it gets hot.
Okay, time to introduce everyone to the term hydrostatic equilibrium. Isn't that a fun term?
I feel fun.
So, hydrostatic equilibrium means that the outward pressure of the fluid caused by both its temperature and just its internal interactions between the particles of the fluid are balanced against the forces of gravity. Now, this is the reason that anything of sufficient mass in space tends to be sphere-shaped, right? So why is the Earth roughly a sphere? It's not exactly a sphere. Nothing in space is exactly a sphere. But yeah, why is Earth roughly a sphere? Because it's in hydrostatic equilibrium. Why is the sun roughly a sphere? Because it's in hydrostatic equilibrium. What hydrostatic equilibrium is is the thing that results from the pressure of the fluid. In this case, it's going to be a gas, eventually then a plasma, right? Because the stars are made of plasma, not gas. They start out as gas, then as they heat up, they turn to plasma. But whatever, that. At this point, the distinction between gas and plasma is not terribly important, so we won't really get too far into it. But yeah, that's just what hydrostatic equilibrium is. Now, I will grant that it does actually have to be the case that the initial temperature of the gas cloud from which a star collapses actually has to be very, very cold. It has to have an average temperature of like only a few Kelvin, like single digits Kelvin, right? But the nice thing is that's basically the temperature that things cool down to when they're not, very proximate to any significant sources of heat like stars. So that's nice. But yeah, once there's enough... Oh! Drink for Godzilla. Yeah. Oh, apparently you drink for Godzilla again. So yeah, once this gravitational collapse has started, and you still have very cold gas, you can get this cold gas to collect quickly enough that it can actually form a core that has enough gravitational attraction to pull in more gas to itself before it heats up to the point where the gravity can't overcome the intermolecular forces as a result of the heating of the gas. And from then it becomes a chain reaction until your circumstellar disk is consumed. And then at that point, fusion will ignite, and the stellar wind resulting from the fusion will then tend to push away anything that's remaining in what is now a protoplanetary disk. And you get a ring of free, open space around the star, followed by a disk, which is actually what's depicted on the thumbnail for this. What I'm depicting on this is actually a brand new star, that has just ignited fusion, thereby pushing away parts of what's now a protoplanetary disk. Until then, when you still have a T Tauri star, that is a star that has not actually started fusion, is only shining because of its internal heat from the collapse of the gas cloud, which again, we have actual pictures of from actual telescopes. This isn't a hypothetical thing that exists. T Tauri stars are real. T Tauri stars are surrounded by circumstellar disks. And we also have T Tauri stars that have actually then gotten brighter and started to push away their protoplanetary disks. And we can also see things like some of the disks being shot away from the stars as jets as a result of the newly increased magnetic fields. And we can actually see in time-lapse photographies from actual telescopes like the Hubble or the James Webb, the jets actually spewing out matter in real time. Yeah, this is not something that we're like, oh, maybe this is a thing, I don't know, maybe it's just a hypothetical, this might happen. We can see every step along the way, from a gas cloud, to a T Tauri star, to an actual main sequence star, to then exiting the main sequence, going into one of the giant phases, then going on to produce a stellar remnant like a white dwarf, or neutron star, or a black hole. And novas and supernovas. All of these things, you can see them. Now, we can't see the whole process, but like we said last time, just because I can't watch a sequoia seed turn into a giant, several 100-meter tall sequoia, doesn't mean that's not how it happens. And I can watch every single stage between those two things. Pretty darn sure that is how it happens. And the fact that it takes longer than I'll likely be alive doesn't make it not happen.
I mean, you've been around since, the early Jurassic, so...
Okay, sorry. Longer than humans will be alive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Events that take longer than a human lifetime still happen. Sorry.
I mean, if you got to get it up to 1,000,000 degrees, that's a lot of expanding force compared to the gravity force of lone...
No, not the gravity force of lone atoms, the gravity force of an entire stellar mass cloud. Because that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about the gravity of an entire star. Now, it's a little bit diffuse, so at first it's not quite as strong in terms of its actual direct effect on any one particle, but it accelerates, and it grows geometrically. Taking a drink for, one hydrogen atom working on another one won't produce a star. Yeah, true. Good thing it's a whole star's worth.
Hydrogen and helium and lithium atoms floating around loose in space. We're talking about atoms that have electron clouds, that have electrons orbiting them. They're not already 1,000,000 degrees. They're floating around in the dead cold of space. And gravity gets them together. Yes, they would heat up. But as soon as they get to a certain, trying to get it together, then they would expand back out. It would never be.
You notice how he hasn't shown one important thing about this claim? The math.
Oh, yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah, he never bothered with the math here. And he hasn't actually even linked us to a place where we could look at the math. Because,
Right,
granted,
yeah, he's like no sources.
yeah, now, look, I'm not going to show you the math for stellar formation right now, because I'll be honest, I don't know it. However, if someone were to say, hey, could you find the peer-reviewed papers on stellar formation? You know what those have? Because I've seen some of them. They do have the math. It's right there. He doesn't have any math. He doesn't even have a source for math.
Able to come together into a proto-star, like the theory says. Contracting gas heats up, and heated gases expand with a force at least 100 times as strong as the force of gravity. So it can never do this. If...
Again, I'll force 100 times the strength of gravity. No math to back that up, though.
The stellar nursery idea is true, why don't we ever...
Yeah, as Meldeborn says, imagine trying to disprove astrophysics without showing your math. Yeah, exactly. Gary Bronson, member for 23 months, and is at the amniote level, says, I think creationists genuinely can't conceptualize sequential, gradual, iterative processes. They expect the end result to immediately come about. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't know if it's a firm rule, but it does seem like they have a serious problem with that. And it's honestly kind of baffling.
Yeah.
I tried to hit play without looking, instead I hit my start menu.
Fusion ignition of stars flickering to life in the Orion Nebula, or the Eagle Nebula, or the Trifid Star Nursery, or all these other gas clouds, these nebulae that are candidate spots in the universe for clouds of gases in space to go ahead and contract and make protostars. We've never ever seen it happen. Now I have.
Okay, let's check that, right? So we're gonna go to Google Scholar. So let's do scholar.google.com. Okay, and I'm gonna switch us over to the my main monitor. Okay. So let's see. Let's go with T-Tauri star fusion. Okay. We'll try protostar. Protostar. Maybe begin. Oh yeah, protostar is one word. Zoom in a bit so you guys can read it. Simulations, evolution, stars, family, connect, life cycle, begin. So we're trying to see if we actually have any observed instances of a star beginning in fusion. Maybe we don't. Maybe we don't. Effective new measurements of star recognition based on path optimization. Bonus from high resolution spectra of canonically low stars, measurements of fusion reactions low. Let's see. Try new star. New star. Because I don't actually know what like good terms to search that. Fast and accurate fusion transcription? No, okay. Dynamic. New star builders, nuclear fusion, and the race of the planet? No. Final fusions. This is definitely getting me all sorts of stuff. I think fusion is the problem.
Doesn't seem right.
Yeah, I think the problem is fusion, because I think that's going with like all sorts of like non-nuclear things. A new phase of stellar evolution, steady state. Let's see. Observe stellar formation. Maybe that works. Solar mass functions. Stars, star orbits, and synthesis. Revolving stellar initial mass function. I mean, that actually does sound interesting, but observed relation between stellar mass, dust extinction, and star formation rate in local galaxies. That sounds. Galaxies on fire. Stellar feedback explains cosmological star formation. Star clusters near and far, tracing star formation across the cosmic time. Evolution of galaxies, star mass, star formation rates. Actually, I'm not actually sure. Maybe we haven't observed a star go from not having fusion to actually having fusion. That is entirely possible. We do have a few drinks to get in here, so if anyone actually does find something like that, because I mean, honestly, I can't search through this the entire time. Do let me know, because I would be interested to find out if we do. Because look, I'm not an expert on anything really, if I'm being honest. But I'm especially not an expert on this. I'm just kind of a interested lay person. Now, Arachamian has gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships, and they went to Stu Griffin, Rye, Enobi Way, Rusty Longshanks, and Nasty Hobbits. So I see that people have been getting in their tetrapod emojis. Do remember to get in your tetrapod emojis, and we're going to drink 5 times. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, Lord Crocosquirrel, who's been a member for 2 months and is at the ambient level, says, I see Chucky pulling Hoven level carp. I can mean crap, but okay. Stellar Revolution, my furry tail. Also, AIG is a fabric of oubliette Kent pocket of obsolete Kent pocket rockets. My goodness, they're obsolete too. Followed by a Mothra emoji. We'll take a drink for that. Thank you very much. Okay. Here we go.
One person say to me it was near Huntington, West Virginia, Marshall University, said, well, Dr. Jackson, you don't understand. A star would gradually get brighter and brighter and brighter. It would take, a million years or something, so you're never going to see that. And I said, no.
That actually, I don't know if that's the case, because I would imagine that at first fusion would start relatively slowly, because you got to remember that what makes a star get up to the ridiculously high temperatures that they actually tend to be at is the fusion itself. What gets it to the point where fusion can begin is the both the pressure from just condensing that much gas, but also that potential energy from the infalling matter. And I think Jackson is about to say something incredibly stupid. I think he's about to say that because fusion is a chain reaction, we already know who he believes, that it should actually happen overnight, or in the blink of an eye, or something like that.
Sir.
Think so?
No, sir.
I do. That's my prediction.
That's not how chain reactions work. This is the exact same chemical.
Okay, we're taking one drink for correct prediction, and we're taking another drink for that being dumb. Okay. Again, the products of hydrogen fusion are helium, a neutron, and some photons. None of which themselves directly induce fusion in other bits of hydrogen. So, oh, wait. My Unfinished Journey says I missed a AIG super chat. I'm sorry. Why am I not? Oh, there it is. My Unfinished Journey for $2. AIG are an ominous omnibus of original organs. Yes. Awesome. And I'm not sure if I missed another one. Briny Bacon Bits got that one. Got the one from Carrie Bronson, Lord Crocosquirrel. So if I have missed one, please do repost it and tag me and let me know that I did. I'm sorry I missed my Unfinished Journey's $2 super chat. I don't like it, but the $2 super chats don't show up in the the banner above the chat. So if they scroll by before I catch them, it's unlikely I'm even going to notice that it happened, which sucks. I wish they showed up at least for a little while. So I'm very sorry about that. If I did miss a membership chat, please tag me with it and what it was, and I will try to get that out there.
Chemical reaction. Well, nuclear reaction happens in a fusion bomb, and a thermonuclear bomb is a chain reaction. We should be
not a chain reaction. Fission is a chain reaction.
We should have all these star maps of the sky. We do this with asteroids and comets and meteors that we're trying to track through the sky. We know what's supposed to be in the sky every night. We look at it again the next night. You know, we have computers doing this sort of thing, and then we got Jill Tarter with SETI. She's looking for all these kind of things too, in case it's, you know, the mothership from Stargate or something coming after us. We should know there's no star in that spot, and the next night, there's a star there.
Oh my goodness, I'm taking another drink, and then we'll talk about that. So this whole time, I've been talking about this concept called the protostar. Right? So protostars are things that are of roughly stellar mass, but that have not actually begun to fuse yet. Why they're not stars. But we know where they are. If one of them became a fusion, you know, undergoing, I don't know what verb I'm supposed to turn into an active participle there. A fusion doing star, there we go. It wouldn't be a new star. It would be one we'd already most likely knew about, because we can see the T Tauri stars, because they radiate highly in the infrared. That's why we find them with infrared telescopes. We know where stellar nurseries are. They also don't just show up anywhere, right? It's not like new stars form in random spots around the galaxy. They form in known stellar nurseries. And why do we know they're stellar nurseries? Well, because they're full of protostars. No, I drank for my briny bacon bits. Yep. My unfinished journey, I'm pretty sure I drank from briny bacon bits. Okay. Yeah, so I think you can see why we're taking a drink for that one. Because it's not like a star would simply pop out of nowhere. Now, novas, which are stars dying, can do that. And that's because a nova is many orders of magnitude brighter when it occurs than the star was that went nova, or supernova. Which means that a star that was so dim that it wasn't noticed, or couldn't have been noticed, can become so bright that it's very obvious. And that's how the word nova got its name, right? Because nova comes from the Latin nova, which means new. Because it's stella nova, a new star. So, Jake Nelson, who's been a member for 3 months and is at the tetrapod level, libelously sends the chat with Dapper Dino loves pelagic tunicates, which of course, sir, is in fact libel, and you will be hearing from my dinosaur lawyers so that we can sue you in dinosaur court. And I will let you know that synapsids tend to fare ill in dinosaur court. Not fair, but that's just how it is. Okay.
It would, because of the nature of fusion reactions, which is a chain reaction, it should be there the next night.
Yep, he's just tripling down on the fusion reaction. It's very frustrating.
It's not just going to gradually, it's going to go, and it's going to be if this could happen, if it was a chain reaction, a fusion reaction, we'd do it that way.
Yeah,
we never, ever have seen.
If fusion were a chain reaction the same way that induced nuclear fission in a nuclear power plant or a nuclear bomb is, then yeah, sure. It just isn't, though.
Seen a star flicker to life.
The closest you can come is to say that, hey, the energy contained in that photon goes on to continue to heat the star up, and the hotter the star gets, the more fusion you get, right? But that's still not going from, like, off to on. That's still a ramping up of the fusion.
Dapper, don't you know if things were different, then they would be different?
It's true, you know? I can't argue with that. If things were different, then they would indeed be different.
Yep. All I can say.
We've seen plenty of them explode. Supernova stars explode, and we know, we have actually got hypothesized nuclear processes that actually...
The real Dia Wing says, does YouTube live chat count as, quote, print? It does in dinosaur court, good sir. It does in dinosaur court.
Actually makes sense, based on what we actually know, to tell the mechanics of how supernova...
Gary Bronson says dinosaur court is a kangaroo court with larger benches. It's also the only place Kent Hovind could win a case. That is incorrect, because we don't allow kangaroos in dinosaur court, except as defendants. So there. But otherwise, yes, it is metaphorically a kangaroo court. And, I don't think Hovind, who doesn't even know what a dinosaur is, could win a case in dinosaur court. Because let's remember, when I asked him to his face how he would identify an organism as a dinosaur if he found its remains himself, personally, Dr. Dino, the expert on dinosaurs in the Bible, who's been going by that name for decades, said, I never thought about that. I guess I'd have to do some research. Yeah. Which, I know it's a little self-serving, but that is still my single favorite question and answer interaction between any one person and Kent Hovind.
Oh, it's pretty darn funny.
It was amazing.
I mean, yeah, that's definitely up there. It's one of the top ones, in my opinion, also.
Yeah.
Although, I do think Dan's recently was also pretty funny.
Yeah, in case you guys have missed it, the channel Creation Myths, run by Dr. Dan Stern Cardinal, has an excerpt of a live stream in which he interacted with Kent Hovind in an effort to expose how little Kent Hovind knows about biology in general, genetics, and evolutionary biology in particular. And it's extremely, extremely clear that Kent Hovind could not actually pass the final exam of a freshman intro to biology class.
Oh.
Not even close.
We could not.
Steve Reno for $2 says, there is no Dana, only Azul and pelagic tunicants. I hate it so much.
Happens. But the whole thing about how the supernova star, before it exploded, got there in the first place, come on in. If this is the stellar evolution and human evolution talk, yeah. We should actually see these things coming to life as quickly as we see them being destroyed. I know a supernova would be a whole lot easier to spot. We can see those over in other galaxies. And I'll show you a picture.
That's true. You know what? It's true. We can see supernovas in other galaxies. Take a drink. But then we're going to talk about that a little bit, because it's a bit of a problem for Charles Jackson here. So, why are supernovas in other galaxies a bit of a problem? Well, there's a two thing, right? One is, not all supernovas are equal. Now,
some are more equal than others.
Well, yes. Thank you, Animal Farm. Some supernovas are directly the result of a large mass star ending its time on the main sequence, becoming a stellar remnant, whether it be a neutron star or a black hole. The Soulcat for $5 says, Bad Jackson would fail an undergrad astronomy unit. This is so bad, astronomers and astrophysicists everywhere are taking psychic damage. Yeah, they probably are. So, now, supernovae that result from high-mass stars, running out of fuel and then undergoing their end of main sequence stages, that's one thing. Those have varying brightness. So we can't use those in other galaxies directly to measure the distance. However, I believe it's type 1a, correct me if I'm wrong if you happen to know better in the chat, supernovae, actually happen when matter falls onto neutron stars, bringing the mass of the neutron star over what's called the Chandrasekhar limit, which cannot be sustained, and it then blows up. So this is normal matter that's accreted onto the surface of the neutron star, that then gets shoved off in a gigantic explosion. Now, because the Chandrasekhar limit is the same, basically, that's just how it works, these have a very consistent absolute luminosity. Now, absolute luminosity is a luminosity that you would see an object at if it were, I believe, 1 parsec away. So you have to have some standard distance. So absolute luminosity is basically a way to say, how objectively bright are things? Because type 1a supernovae have a known and largely invariant absolute luminosity, you can use the approximate luminosity of distant type 1a supernovae to determine the distance that they occurred. And doing so reveals that distant galaxies are far, far too far away for the light to have reached us in 6,000 years. And what that means is you have two options. The universe isn't 6,000 years old. Actually, I suppose you have three. The universe isn't 6,000 years old. That's one option. That's the option that science goes with, because there's a whole lot of other reasons the universe can't be only 6,000 years old. This just adds to it. 2, God created all that light in train to the Earth, including the light of explosions in distant galaxies that never actually had explosions. No, a parsec is a unit of distance, Savage Cobra official. A parsec is, so we'll get into that real quick. A parsec is how far an object would be for the 6-month stellar parallax, so that's from one side of the year to the other side in Earth's orbit, equal 1 degree of stellar parallax. So, yeah, parsecs are a unit of distance. No stars are as close as a parsec, other than, the sun. But, yeah. So, and yeah, asking for George Lucas. Sorry, George. Although, I mean, they had an okay-ish retcon about how, like, the Kessel Run involves skirting near black holes, and Han Solo skirted closer to the black holes than anyone ever had before because it's so risky, and that reduced the distance that he traveled, thereby reducing the time that he completed the Kessel Run in. I think that got a nod in the Solo movie, which I only saw once. So, I don't know.
It's been a while since I've seen it too, so I don't remember.
It's a bit of a stretch, even with the retcon. Anyway. So yeah, the other option, so there's one option, the universe is just not 6,000 years old. It's far, far older. Option 2 is God is just a liar. God just invents fake supernovae that just never happened. Just to make the universe look like it's really old. The other option, of course, is the asynchronous speed of light convention, in which the speed of light towards Earth is infinite, the speed of light away from Earth is 2c, which is just heliocentrism, but only for light. Sorry, geocentrism. Yes, geocentrism, but just for light. The entire universe is not geocentric, except for light. Light actually travels towards the center of the universe, which is, of course, Earth, at infinite speeds, and away from Earth at double the speed of light, which I can't disprove it, but you might be able to see why it's a little odd that while nothing in the entire universe looks like geocentrism is true, it just happens that actually for light it is, just to make it so that a 6,000-year universe is plausible. Seems like a whole lot of special pleading and a whole lot of just post hoc, or not even post hoc, just ad hoc thinking. And that's the Jason Lyle idea. It's basically, hey, if I go with the absolute most ad hoc explanation possible, for which there's no reason to think it's true, then I can kind of salvage this. So, yeah. So what we're going to do now, though, is actually we're going to take a quick break. I need to go get myself some new beers. And, we'll take a chance for anyone to do any kind of biology stuff they need to do. And then we will be right back. So, in the meantime, please enjoy the musical stylings of one Bent Hovind, my regular co-host for Kent with Bent. And we will be back in just a few minutes. And we are back. Welcome back, Jackson. I hope everyone enjoyed the quick break. I am now pouring a beer. Jackson, how was your break?
Broken?
Oh, okay. Entirely know
Break
that.
is broken.
Okay, fair enough. So, I want to let everyone know that this channel is supported almost entirely directly by its viewers. I was actually looking at my analytics the other day, and the money that I get directly from ads to keep this channel going, because it is a self-supporting channel, is like a sixth of what the YouTube channel actually brings in. It's basically nothing, right? Like, I could completely turn off ads, and it would almost not affect the channel. Which means that it's you guys who are keeping this channel going. You who are in the chat, who are watching, who are leaving super chats, who are leaving super thanks, who are joining the channel, who are joining the Patreon. And I really appreciate that. And if you are someone who has been thinking about doing that, but you're not currently supporting, you're not a channel member or a patron, I sincerely ask you to consider it, only if you can afford it. If you can't afford it, then please don't. If you can't afford it, I absolutely do not want any money from you. However, if you can, and you really appreciate the channel, you'd like to become part of the team that's helping support it, there are two great ways to do that. Is the channel membership program and the Patreon, both of which have very similar perks. There are multiple tiers. On Patreon, you can get a discount for going annual rather than monthly. Can't do that on YouTube. But on YouTube, you can get the emojis, so, you know, it's a bit of back and forth. If you join either of those, you can join my members-only Discord, where we do things like, we just chat a lot, but we also have, like, after shows for Saturdays where we watch some Power Rangers. We're about to finish up Mighty Morphin Alien Rangers and jump into Power Rangers Zeo today. You can get early access to, like, I think it's coming up on 5 months worth of content now. So just hours and hours of extra content that you can just watch whenever you feel like it. There's other perks at higher levels. You can get into the credits. You can have me say your name in the credits, all sorts of stuff like that. Now, if you don't want to go monthly or annual, but you still want to help out a little bit, there is a merch store in the description and also an Amazon wish list. So if you want to just, you know, buy a t-shirt or a pillow or a blanket or something like that, go ahead. That's a great way to both support the channel as well as, you know, in conversation starter. Someone's like, hey, why is there a dinosaur on your shirt? Oh, it's this YouTube channel I like, and whatever. And the Amazon wishlist is mostly just fun stuff for me, although there is a little bit of stuff that could, you know, help out the channel directly, like backup keyboard for when my keyboard inevitably breaks because I do something stupid like spill a bunch of beer on it. There's an extra monitor because my monitors are a little in some cases. So, you know, there's stuff like that, but there's also stuff like dice and role-playing game books. So, you know, it's a lot of fun stuff. And if none of that's right for you, if you can't afford it or you just don't want to, please make sure you like this video and share this video with people who you think would enjoy it. And that goes for all my videos. Comment on it once it's over. All those things really help the channel out. But now that I've gotten through the commercial bit, time to dive back into Charles Jackson. Good Jackson. Are you ready for Bad Jackson?
Let's do.
All right, here we go.
But okay.
Oh, also Savage Cobra Kind official says, AIG is a bevy of wedding tackle. Okay, we'll take a drink. All right.
Okay, just to regroup here, you got a nebula. The popular theory says that stars form from vast clouds of gas and dust through a gravitational contraction. But as soon as they try to contract, they'll get hot and then they'll want to expand back out again. So they'll never, ever be able to coalesce into anything. Because of this, I'm just going to say, Physics 101, Chemistry 101, that stellar evolution doesn't qualify as a theory.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, you go ahead first.
I was going to say, it's nice that he's like, oh, astrophysicists just never thought of basic physics. That just wasn't a thing that ever entered their heads. They're just like, meh, yeah. Physics, who needs it? We're literally astrophysicists. But we don't care about the physics. Which I'm going to say...
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, the idea that these guys just hadn't considered physics or chemistry 101 in all of their thinkings. Yeah, no.
Also, Theros Rex says, I got to troll Nathan Thompson a bit the other day. Fun. Man, that guy is the worst. Troll him as much as you possibly can. He deserves every last bit of it. He has ruined so many people's lives, not just by convincing them that the Earth is flat, but by like being a worthless couch surfer who just takes and takes and takes, then runs off with people's stuff. He's a known thief. He's a flat earther. He doesn't pick up his dog's turds. Like, everything about Nathan Thompson is just absolutely terrible. And I love that the way he got into flat earth was that his quote-unquote brain coach, who was just using him to help perpetuate a scam, told him that the earth was flat as a joke, and he went too far with it. Not the brain coach, Nathan Thompson. This is why Nathan Thompson thinks that bouncing a golf ball on a sledgehammer while reciting the alphabet backwards means that he knows more about science than you. Nathan Thompson is... I'm not going to say he's as bad as Kent Hovind, because as far as I know, he's never been convicted of beating anyone. But, like, he's in the running for, like, worst human being in terms of pseudoscience advocates. So, yeah. In case you guys aren't sure who Nathan Thompson is, he's a fairly prominent flat earther. I mean, prominent among flat earthers. No one's really a prominent flat earther on the global scale. But, you know. Oh, Steve Marino says Dapper's a thief. He steals all our hearts. Aw, thank you. Alright, here we go.
There are no known principles of science that permit this to happen, and there are known principles of science that say it can never happen. Now, maybe there's some new force in the universe that we haven't discovered yet. That's fine. I'll allow that. But at this point, it barely qualifies as a hypothesis. A hypothesis is supposed to be educated... What?
Guess.
An educated guess. Educated says this can't happen.
It's not what... I hate that definition of hypothesis because that's not what it is. It's not a guess.
It's not.
You're not just making a guess. You are forming an idea based on your preliminary data.
Right, there has to be actual reasons to think it's true. It can't just be literally anything you came up with, because, like, you had a weird bit of indigestion and had a hallucination about how stars form. Just remember, there's more of gravy than of grave about you. Charles Dickens reference there.
Yeah,
that's right.
I don't like that.
Read.
Like, I know you read. I don't like in high school and, like, you know, middle school and whatnot, they teach kids like, oh, hypothesis is just an educated guess. It's like, no, it really isn't.
Yeah, it's really not. It's a bad definition. It's like, if you're giving it to a 5-year-old, it might not be the worst definition, but, like, we're adults here, Charles Jackson. You're talking to a bunch of adults. Especially since, looking at the audience, it's clear that these people are not, like, just a bunch of college kids. And if they are college students, they're what colleges like to call non-traditional students. Which, by the way, I was one of. There's nothing wrong with being one. But it means that he's talking to a bunch of people who are grown people, who can handle a real definition. Also, being a quote-unquote non-traditional college student, which basically means you're old, is a weird experience, because, like, in some cases you're older than your professors. Like, I was older than my Christian history professor by, like, several years. It was a little weird.
Oh.
Yeah.
The TAs for, like, the labs, I could see that, because most of them were, like, early to mid-20s. I've only had, like, a handful of actual professors who were, like, fairly young. But even of them, I think they were, like, late 20s, maybe early 30s.
I mean, this was this guy's first year teaching as a professor. So, like...
Yeah. And
he wasn't that much younger than me. Like, I think he was, like, 2 years younger than me or something. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I got out of the Navy and became a freshman. Actually, I didn't even do it immediately after the Navy. I waited, like, a year and a half or something. So, yeah. I was significantly older than most of the other students. It was a little bit of a weird situation. It also didn't help that, like... there were definitely questions that were asked in class that I knew the answer to that he didn't, because I'd done a lot of independent study in the field. Mm-hmm. So, like, it was also a little bit weird that eventually it got to the point where, like, if he wasn't sure of the answer, he would double check with me in class.
I've had as a TA, I've had professors do that. They're like, is I think this is it. Is that right, Jackson? Oh.
But I mean, look, it was a fun class, and I'm not saying I knew more about the topic than he did. There were clearly more questions that he could answer than I could. Although I will say I still haven't gotten over that time that he did a section on the history of Christian art, and for the title slide, he had a statue that was actually a Republican Roman statue of a senator, and not a part of Christian art, because I don't know if you guys know, but the Republican Roman period ended before Christianity began. And so I called him out in class. I was like, I feel like that's a statue from Republican Rome and not Christian. Oh, no. And he was like, yeah, it is, but I like it. I'm like, okay.
He said, I do what I want.
Like, what am I supposed to say after that? Like, you shouldn't use that. Gotta find a Christian statue.
Hey, we haven't discovered the star-forming principle yet. But educated means, as far as everybody knows, this can't happen. It's impossible by the laws of nature, just like the Big Bang violates the first law of thermodynamics, and the second law of thermodynamics, and many other problems with it too, but this goes along with it in the larger Big Bang story. In a massive, dense cloud shielded by dust, it is believed, it says here, 1994, that collapse...
1994, this speech was given at the very least in the mid-2010s. Just going to put that out there. In fact, I believe it was actually given in like the early or the late 2010s. So we're going with like 20-year-old sources for astrophysics. Look, if an old source is the only source that there is for a particular topic, or if you need to cite it for historical reasons, like for instance, a lot of times in biology source texts, if you're talking about a particular organism, you cite the person and the paper in which that organism was first described, which can go all the way back to Linnaeus, right?
Yep.
Like if you are writing a paper about like a taxon that Linnaeus named, like the gray wolf or something like Canis lupus, you're going to reference Linnaeus because he's the one who gave it the name. That's fine. But generally speaking, you should try to get the most up-to-date sources available. And
sorry.
And the fact that creationists just do not care and will happily cite outdated things from decades ago and just pretend that that's the latest science. It's just really frustrating.
Yeah, or if you you say something like, this study has been, or researchers have been attempting to understand this problem for the past 100 years, and you cite like references from the past 100 years.
Yeah.
But it's just as a historical note, not like,
right,
this was the final word on it 40 years ago.
Deli 1998 for $5 says, well, obviously you're older than your professors unless one has been around since the Triassic or before. Just earlier in the Jurassic, man. But yeah, it's a good point. But I went to dinosaur college, so we don't have to worry about that. Of course, dinosaur college was also full of birds. All the freshmen were birds. It's weird. Average Cobra kind of official says, AIG is jingoistic jumble of judgmental Johnsons who jeer at the Jurassic, also who employ Bad Jackson, a jagoff. That's amazing. I'll take a drink for that one. Good stuff. Okay, here we go.
Can be triggered when the cloud is slowed on passing through the spiral density wave pattern of our galaxy. The spiral density wave theory talks about how our galaxy can maintain the spiral arms, sort of a propeller blade twisted octopus arm thing.
You could just call it a spiral arm. That's already clear enough. It's not like spiral or arm or either of them very technical terms that lay folk can't understand. It's like an octopus arm. No! Just stop taking a drink for Jackson has to come up with even more absurd ways to explain something that's already pretty obvious what it means.
Or is it an octopus foot?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. You know what? Cephalopods are weird, man.
They are weird. Can confirm.
I mean, look, mollusks, as a rule, are just kind of weird compared to most other bilaterians. Like, they don't really have an anterior or a posterior end. Like, alone among bilaterians, they like have an oral-aboral axis. What the heck? Stop that.
Why can't you be normal?
Exactly.
Mollusk screaming.
Babadook-meme.gif.
You know, I think personally the weirdest mollusk is like the pteropods. They're like free swimming sea slugs. They have like little fins and they propel themselves around like friggin' fish.
They do, and that's actually pretty cool. And from some angles, you could be forgiven for mistaking them for fish.
Yeah, they're bonkers.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Fade to Greg for $5 says, "Stop making Dapper Dinosaur apologetics difficult. We keep finding new ways to explain your anecdotes to the heretical Dapper human." You know, the Dapper Dinosaur lore just grows and grows and gets more and more complicated as time goes on. Don't even worry about it. Which actually reminds me, it's about time for me to make a new intro video. So I have ideas. So hopefully, sometime in April, I will have a new intro video. In fact, the next few weeks are probably going to be like less of me producing new videos for the channel and more of me doing like some background stuff to update parts of the channel. Which means if you're a member or a channel or a patron, there probably won't be quite as many new videos as you're used to. But to be fair, I do make more videos per month than I air each month. So like for basically the last 2 years, my channel patrons and members have been getting more content than has been coming out on the channel, which is a ridiculous pace to maintain the entire time. So, you know.
That we have in the arms of our galaxy, Milky Way. Well, again, it's believed, it's possible, it could happen, and that's fine to say that. But then everyone goes, no, but this is true. You can't make that jump.
Okay, look. It is, to some extent, fair to say that because our current understanding of stellar formation is not what I would call very complete, right? There's still some very big open questions in it. Then say, well, okay, we should make sure that we emphasize that certain aspects of this are questionable, right? And we don't know all of this for sure. That's fine. However, the fact is that we have stars. We know that some stars can't last very long. And we have just so many reasons to conclude that the universe is billions of years old. The only reasonable thing for science to do is to say that stars can form. And we see every stage of the predicted stellar formation. Again, there are open questions in this, and it's actually one of the areas of science that's currently undergoing a lot of active research. There's a lot we don't know. But to then just jump to the, well, therefore we shouldn't be able to say that stars can form, it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
It would be like, okay, look, there are certain sharks whose breeding habits remain a mystery to this day. We don't know where they spawn, we don't know where they lay their eggs, we don't know what the baby versions of them look like, where they hunt, any of that stuff, right? In fact, to some extent, as far as I know, great white sharks are still in this area.
Yep.
It is not reasonable to then conclude that great white sharks come out of the muck at the bottom of the ocean like Uruk-hai from Lord of the Rings. Chances are they still have shark sex and still lay shark eggs.
Probably.
Maybe they don't. Maybe. Sure. If you want to investigate the coming out of the muck of the ocean theory, hypothesis, and not even hypothesis, idea, we'll go with idea, for great white shark generation, feel free. Knock yourself out. The rest of the world, though, is going to continue on saying, chances are that these animals reproduce in the way that you would probably expect them. So, yeah. Which, in fact, actually means in some ways we know more about stellar formation than we do about great white shark reproduction. Let that sink in. Alright, here we go.
That's not science. It's cool, it's interesting thinking, but it isn't science till you have evidence. I have students asking me, is the Loch Ness Monster real?
Well, later, this woman who's in the
No.
chat is going to ask you if Bigfoot is real, and you're going to be very mean to her. Because remember, this is before the other episode that we did. We did them out of order. This is the same audience. I actually saw that same woman who asked about Bigfoot.
And I said, well, until we catch one and put it in an aquarium or something, we don't really know. Are aliens real? Well, there's not a single data point that says that there's intelligent life on any other planet. So,
you know what? I'll take a drink. That is also true. There has not been anything that would indicate that there are any other civilizations out there, which is a bit weird, and I don't have a great explanation for it. Now, there are a whole bunch of Fermi paradox solutions, many of which are really dark, and I would prefer them not to be true.
Like the, what is it, the Dark Forest or whatever?
Oh yeah, the Dark Forest is perhaps the most terrifying one. So in case you guys don't know, the Dark Forest idea is that because the meeting of two intelligent species of significantly different levels of technology would be so dangerous for the lower tech species, and there's no way to know for sure if anything that you're going to encounter is going to be vastly more or less advanced than you are. The best bet is to simply hide your civilization from any detection by not building megastructures that are detectable, not using broadband radio transmission, using only narrowband transmissions, things like that. And that also, if you detect a civilization, that you should go on a first strike genocide campaign against them before they can do it to you. And so therefore, there might be intelligent life all over the universe, but everyone's hiding from each other because they know the minute that they pop their head out, they'll just get annihilated. There's also the dead space Fermi paradox, which is to say that there's some force of destruction that destroys any civilization that gets advanced enough that it can start actually spreading around the stars. I think that one's a bit more far-fetched than the Dark Forest. I also don't actually think the Dark Forest is the most plausible explanation for the Fermi paradox, mostly because I don't actually think that everyone of sufficient technology would just go on a genocidal crusade. Because, I mean, if you think about it, humans don't just destroy every organism that's less advanced than they are in terms of technology. In fact, in some cases, humans try and fail to do that. So...
like emus.
Yeah, there was that time that Australia tried to just get rid of a whole bunch of emus, and then they failed.
They lost the war against the emus.
Right. Australia, as far as I know, the only country to have lost a war against birds. Unlike the United States, which won its war against the dreaded passenger pigeon.
Oh, sad.
Oh, yeah.
It's nothing that's confirmable scientifically. It's a cool, interesting story. Hey, I like Star Trek. You know, I like the idea of Klingons.
Yeah, we know you like Star Trek.
Vulcans warping around the universe. That sounds fun to me. A galaxy far, far away and all of that.
That's not Star Trek, my dude. We're taking a drink. Star Trek is definitively set in the Milky Way galaxy. By the way, as we talk about this, I am drinking out of a beer mug that has only Klingon text on it, and it says Niteb Chob Kad Jup Et Chao Bet Shuvit, which means a warrior does not let a friend face danger alone. And then it also says Klingon Mach Pachjaj, which means we must remain Klingon. It was gifted to me from my Amazon wishlist by a viewer, so thank you very much. And that is just me flexing extra nerd cred because Charles Jackson likes to flex his nerd cred for no good reason.
But it isn't science until we have data and observations and the scientific method. Okay, the Eagle Nebula, I've even seen t-shirts made of this showing that's how the molecules of life got started.
Molecules of life got started in the Eagle Nebula? That doesn't sound right, but I guess I don't actually have any information to say that it's definitely wrong. Vanelli 1998 for $5 says, also, probably need a really good space telescope because we probably look like a tiny speck to anyone passing the Oort cloud. Well, the idea with that is that there are things that civilizations of sufficient technological development would do that would be fairly obvious. One of them being megastructures, right? So, if you take a look at the history of power usage per person throughout human history, we've entered a phase where power usage per person is going up geometrically, not linearly. And then the idea is that, well, if you extrapolate that out, which maybe you can't do, but if you would realize that pretty soon, on a cosmic scale, humans would need so much power as a species, given how much power per person and how many extra people there would likely be, that they would essentially get to the point where their energy needs are rivaling the entire output of the sun. At which point, the only way to really get this would be a megastructure that captures almost all the energy of the sun, which would most likely take the form of a Dyson swarm array of solar satellites, right, that would collect solar power and then beam them via laser beams to collection platforms where humans are. A Savage Cobra Kinda official for $2 says, how's that direct observation of the flood going? Yeah, good question. But the thing is that would have a noticeable and predictable effect on how the sun would be if observed from a distant location, which would mean that the sun all of its gravitational effects would be intact, but given its mass, its stellar spectrum would peak anomalously high in the infrared because these solar arrays would radiate in the infrared. And so if you see a location in the galaxy with an anomalously high amount of unusually high infrared emission stars that otherwise should actually be peaking elsewhere in the spectrum, that is a good indication that those stars have megastructures. We have no indications of that. So that would be a way to observe a technologically advanced civilization from a distance, but we don't have that. So we also don't have any unambiguous examples of radio transmissions that don't seem to be natural, coming from anywhere in the galaxy, even nearby. Now, granted, because of this inverse square law, that might not be a thing that we can reasonably expect. And also, humans are, on their own, without any particular internal threat, going more and more to... Jackson, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Why?
For some reason, we started getting a lot of weird static from your microphone.
Oh, I'm not particularly close to it. I can.
It doesn't seem to be there now, so I'm not worried too much worried about it.
All right. I don't know.
So yeah, humans have been going increasing to narrow band transmissions, which don't just radiate out in a sphere out into space. So it's not clear that transmissions are a reliable way to detect a high-tech civilization. But megastructures would be. We don't see any of those. So, yeah. Anyway, here we go.
Because the stars in there, through fusion reactions, made the heavier elements that ended up being the elements of life, like carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, and sulfur. Do pictures confirm that stars are forming? No, we don't. Actually, we see stars floating around out there, but have we ever seen one actually, spark to life in any of the nebulae?
What would that look like? Because as far as I can tell, what it would look like is we see an infrared source that slowly gets brighter and slowly gets higher frequency in its peak emission spectrum. And then eventually, over the course of probably millennia, eventually it goes from mostly infrared well into the visual spectrum or higher. But that does not seem like the kind of thing that you could just look up one night and notice a change. In fact, even the time-lapse photographs that we have of protostars beginning to shove away their circumstellar disk, that's the word, even those have to be taken over the course of months or years, not hours. We're talking here's 20 different frames, each taken from a different month, in order to even see the jet moving. Things in space do not happen on a human timescale, except for novas and supernovas. Sorry. I'm just going to take a drink for Charles Jackson being well, if I can't see it happen in real time in my lifetime, it just doesn't count. Okay. All right, here we go.
No, not at all. Sometimes there's this called the Towers of Life. That's also part of the Eagle Nebula there. You can see the eagle flying there. 1998. Stars are still forming today. About 1,500 light years away lies the Orion Nebula, enough gas and dust to make millions of stars. It even contains protostars that are still condensing. Again, we don't see protostars.
We don't, huh? Okay. Let's just look up a list of... if we can find a list of T-Tauri stars. See what happens. Okay, here's a category, T-Tauri stars. We've got the T-Tauri star, which is the thing the whole class is named for. We have 1RXJ16092922.1-210524. We have AA Tauri, BM Andromedae, BP Tauri, CI Tauri, COKU Tau/4 CT Chameleontis, CVSO 30 DH Tauri, DI Chameleontis, DL Tauri, EX Lupi, FU Tauri, which is a great name, GG Tauri, GK Tauri, GQ Lupi, GV Tauri, GW Orionis, HD 98800, HD 104231, HD 150193, HD 283572, HK Tauri, HL Tauri, KH15D, LKCA15, PDS70, PV Cephei, R Monocerotis, RU Lupi, which is also a really great name. We're taking a drink for RU Loopy and FU Tori. Those are both great. RW Aurige, RY Tori, S Corona Australis, SU Aurige, T Chameleontis, T Tori, which we already listed, T Tori Wind or Wind, I'm not really sure. I've only read it. TW Hydra, UX Tori, V380 Orionis, V718 Perseus, V773 Tori, V830 Tori, V1094 Scorpii, V1298 Tori, V1331 Cygni, V4046 Sagittarii, and XZ Tori.
Oh.
Those are just the named protostars in one class of protostar. Jackson, do you think we've seen any protostars based on what I just said?
I think we have. It seems like a few.
Yeah, it just seems like maybe. I'm going to take a drink. My goodness. And yeah, Bitcore, points out the JWST, James Webb Space Telescope, is going to discover a lot more protostars thanks to the infrared penetrating dust clouds. Yup. I just love it. We haven't seen any protostars. Literally dozens of them. And more to come. I just...
we see maybe blue stars, which they say are young stars, but we
because they don't last long, but okay.
Actually don't see gas clouds that are contracting.
I just named a bunch, but sure.
They're just so sold on the theory, they figure we're going to prove it eventually. Let's just go ahead and put it in print. It's a little, like Mark Twain said, the rumors of my death have been greatly exaggerated. Well, the rumors of star birth have been greatly exaggerated. There's the Orion Nebula there that we're talking about. It is a beautiful gas cloud in the constellation of Orion. I think it's in one of the stars in his dagger sheath. But how do we know that stars...
So does that mean that Charles Jackson thinks that God just created this vast universe with a whole bunch of different stars at different points in their life? Because?
Yeah.
Just because.
Yeah, he just created some stars right next to death. Just for funsies.
I would imagine we can't see most of the stars from Earth, right?
I mean, I guess it depends on exactly what you mean, but in some ways, yes. In other ways, no.
Okay. Well, I mean, there are probably a bunch that are
there's definitely a
from
bunch
our
that
vision.
are obscured. Yeah, mostly the ones that are obscured by the Milky Way itself.
Okay, so it's even if he try to make the argument that it's just for human, the beauty of the universe to wow humans, then why would so many of them be obscured from our vision?
But Jackson, how do you know that there are even stars there? You haven't even seen them.
I guess that's true.
You're just atheistically taking the Copernican principle at face value.
Am I?
Yes, actually, that is what... well, I don't know if it's atheistically, but yeah. The Copernican principle says that there's nothing particularly special about our observation point in the universe. Which would
I feel
mean
he wasn't an atheist, though.
Oh, no, he wasn't. But creationists like to pretend that the Copernican principle is an atheist thing.
Okay.
Because to be fair, most atheists do actually accept the Copernican principle. So,
Oh, sure, okay.
But So the Copernican principle says that in the parts of the sky that we can't see distant galaxies in because it's blocked by, say, the Milky Way, that there probably are distant galaxies there. We just can't see them. But if you reject the Copernican principle, then you could say, well, God just didn't make stars there because we can't see them, so why would he bother? Problem is, though, that one of those, it requires that the unobserved parts of the universe to be radically different than the parts that we can see, which generally hasn't been the case. When we've become able to observe new parts of the universe in the past, it hasn't generally been a radical departure from what we were expecting. But also, it's just it's a weird way to make a universe. But I mean, I can't disprove the Copernican principle might be violated in that way. But it does just still seem really odd that God would just make this entire vast universe for funsies.
Yeah.
Including explosions that people aren't really going to notice. Some of them do happen so far away that it would require powerful telescopes. Also, Olivia Williams for $6.99 Beaver Bucks says, I do wonder why an all-powerful God would create such a vast universe just for having a relationship with us. Yeah, it's a little odd. And also, the authors of Genesis didn't think he did, right? They thought that the stars were affixed to a dome over a flat Earth, held up on pillars, surrounded by a cosmic ocean.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that kind of universe, it kind of makes sense for someone to have created that, as is. Whereas the vast, gigantic universe, or actually, here's one that's even crazier. Galaxies that are in the process of colliding right now is a thing. You can look at, like, the Antennae Galaxy, or is it galaxies? Right? Like, that's a thing that's currently happening. We're watching galaxies collide. So were they created mid-collision, complete with the various, like, inherited velocities of the two galaxies that are coming together? That's weird. And why do they look like what results from our gravitational simulations of such events? Like, so God just created mid-collision galaxies? It's like creating a mid-car collision in your initial starting point of the universe. It's just weird. Why would you do that?
Because God does what he wants. God dang it.
I mean, I guess, but, like, that's not something that anyone would have predicted on the basis of creationism. That's something that's only been accommodated by. All right, I'm going to hit play.
Stars are actually being created there. The story says so, but that's not science yet. It's a posit at best. Images taken by the Very Large Telescope. But again, the Horsehead.
Did you just say by the Very Large Telescope?
I think so.
I'm taking a drink. Guys, you know which one. It's the Very Large one. Oh.
Really big one.
Interestingly, there's an observatory not far from where I am now, and the Vatican owns a fairly large portion of those telescopes.
I believe it. I mean, they probably funded most of the research into space, for a long time. So
actually, to this day, the Vatican actually does a lot of really high quality astronomy.
Like I said, I believe it.
Yeah, it's one of those things people don't tend to think about. But yeah, the Vatican actually does actually pay for and own a lot of astronomy equipment, and those results get published in just regular old astronomy journals. They're not publishing them in some kind of theology journal. They're just doing regular old astronomy, and they do a lot of it.
Georges Lemaitre, right?
Yeah, he was a Jesuit.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I have a lot of criticism I could level at the Vatican. However, their participation in the advancement of astronomy is not one of those things. Because they're doing a lot of good work in astronomy. So, good on them.
Almost makes you forget about the wait. No, it doesn't.
No, it really doesn't. Yeah, there's a
wasn't going to say it.
lot of bad things that we could point out.
Yeah,
a lot of bad things.
Yeah.
But, that doesn't mean that everything they do is bad. There are good aspects to what they do. I just don't think it outweighs all the bad things in all cases.
We're supposed to be thinking that all nebulae have stars forming in them. A lot of these.
No, not all nebulae have stars forming. Oh my god, I'm taking another. My goodness. So, many nebulae do not have stars forming in them. For one thing, because they're not big enough. And for two, because in some cases they're actually expanding, which you can't be expanding rapidly. You're going to collapse into a star. So, for instance, planetary nebulae are nebulae that are the result of a nova or supernova. Those are not forming stars. Those are expanding out into space. Eventually, they'll just kind of merge with the interstellar medium, which then, that material could then go on to start becoming parts of new stars. But that will be part of a new nebula, not the planetary nebula itself. So, yeah. No, not all nebulae are forming stars. That's dumb.
Nebulae are actually expanding. A lot of them could be formed by...
Yeah, a lot of them are expanding. You got that right. That's why no one thinks that all of them are forming stars, you dumbass. We're taking a drink for you getting it right anyway. My goodness. As if astrophysicists never thought that, hey, maybe these expanding nebulae aren't forming stars. Nope. They just go with all nebulae form stars. That's what they do.
Like hearing you get grumpy.
Yeah, thank you. I'm taking another drink just because I need to cool my brain off a little bit from this. I just hate the level of disrespect he has for any scientist who doesn't disagree with him. They must all just be idiots who miss the most obvious thing. Very frustrating. All right, here we go.
Like the Crab Nebula, formed by supernova stars that exploded, so those gases are still receding away from the center.
Yeah, like I just said, planetary nebulae, not forming stars.
The Trifid Star Nursery, it's even called. This is where stars are supposed to be born. It's a story, and I don't mind a story, but don't go around saying you're stupid if you don't believe the story.
Look, I'm not going to say that you're stupid if you don't think that the current ideas about stellar formation work, or in part because some of them, we're not sure how they work, right? That's part of the problem with stellar formation. It's still an open question exactly how it works. However, if you're going to say, because stellar formation contains significant open questions, therefore the universe is only 6,000 years old, or that's even evidence in favor of the universe being 6,000 years old, you're either stupid or intensely misinformed. Or just a liar. But...
Dun dun dun.
Yeah. Yes, and Trailmix put in the projector emoji. Yes. Oh, there's Mothra. Drink for Mothra. Thank you very much, Queen of the Monsters. And here we go.
But you might be going against the majority's personal beliefs.
No, the majority consensus in science is not a personal belief on the part of the majority. It is well evidenced, well supported, and produces predictions that are confirmed consistently. That's why it's the majority opinion.
But I'm really only sold on science. I'm only sold on science, and science is knowledge. If you do something...
No, science is not knowledge. Science is a process by which we whittle away things that are not correct, leaving us with things that are more likely to be correct. Then we continue to work at that, and work at that, and work at that, in an effort to be the least wrong possible about the natural world.
Yeah.
Calling it knowledge on its own is dumb, because there are things that you can know that science can't tell you. Like, I know that given standard mathematical axioms, that 1 + 1 is 2. Science didn't tell me that. There was no empirical research that went into that. That's a result of the axioms of standard mathematics. You can come up with other forms of mathematics in which 1 + 1 don't equal 2, and I could know things about that form of mathematics. It's not the form of mathematics that I tend to use, because it's not clear how those forms of mathematics are very useful in the real world. But, yeah.
In good conscience, you do it with knowledge. Chili con carne is chili with meat, okay?
You know what? We'll take a drink. Chili with con carne is indeed chili with meat. Which means it is time to open up the fourth beer of the night. Here we go. Time for another beer pour. Alright. Pouring. Look at that. Less than a monolayer of bubbles. That's what I like to see. What? That exceeds my minimum criteria for a good beer pour. I like it when that happens. I say that as if I'm not largely in control of that. Couldn't just be more careful. Too Young to Feel a Soul for $5 says, a great book. I'm sorry. Off there. A great book I'm about to finish about star formation, specifically formation of the very first stars, is First Light by Emma Chapman. I have not read that. That sounds good, though. Let me know how it is when you finish it. Wait, I got awfully close to Shmuel Paulin there? Says the real DM Wing? You're going to have to tell me more, because I feel like I should not be anywhere close to Shmuel Paulin. Here we go.
Means with, like conduct, to go with. And conscious science means knowledge. La ciencia, science. In German, Wissenschaft.
Yay! Jackson knows how to say the word science in other languages. Good for you, buddy. Woo. Too bad you don't know anything about actual science. How many languages do you need to know the word for science in before you start to know science?
At least 7.
At least 7? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was going to say, I don't think there's any number. I think it could be as few as one, and you could know a lot about science, or as many as all of them, and you still wouldn't know a damn thing about science. I feel like they're just uncorrelated. Oh, with the 1 + 1? Yeah, okay. Yeah, Shmuel Paulin did say that math doesn't work because if you smush one clay ball together with another clay ball, you get one clay ball. Yeah, he did say that. It was extremely dumb. But that's because he wasn't trying to contest like mathematical axioms. He was just saying, there are circumstances in which you can combine one thing and another one thing, and then you just get a different thing, and there's not two of the same things. Like, okay. Great Shmuel. Maybe I should look into Shmuel Paulin and see if there's anything I should cover. My goodness. You know who Shmuel Paulin is?
I don't think so.
He's an Orthodox Jew of a very, very interesting bent who wrote this book, if you will, about why you should believe in God according to him. That was just so nonsensical. Like, at one point he was like, spontaneous generation is totally a thing because of this section in the Talmud that says that this certain kind of worm is kosher. It's like, I feel like you're gonna have to do a whole lot more than point out that some rabbis writing the Talmud were wrong about worms in order for me to say that spontaneous generation is a thing that happens. I don't know.
I don't even know how to rebut that.
Well, I mean, it requires you to think that the Talmud is authoritative in its literal sense for all of reality, which I don't think that's true. But then again, I'm not like an ultra-Orthodox Jew, so, I probably wouldn't.
I like that, I appreciate, like, spontaneous generation is true. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Basically, it was like, there was this particular kind of worm that occurs in fish. I think it's actually in reality like a parasitic worm or something. But apparently the rabbis who were writing this part of the Talmud were like, well, it's generated from the fish. So because it comes from the fish, from the fish's body, and the fish is kosher, and therefore this kind of worm is kosher.
Okay.
Of course, it's just not true that that's how that worm comes about, because that's not how anything works.
Sure, yeah.
Interesting? Yeah, it's... literalism doesn't work a whole lot better if you just also include the Talmud in addition to biblical text. Like, that doesn't really help with the whole literalism being wrong. Theropods are not kosher, says Rembrandt 972. That is incorrect. Some theropods are kosher. Most are not. So, take that. Chickens, kosher. So, chickens are theropods. You can't just say theropods aren't kosher. It's like saying mammals aren't kosher. Most mammals aren't kosher. Some are, like giraffes.
Which means knowing craft. Knowing craft. You see, science.
Okay, to be fair, giraffes are not traditionally kosher in like the strictest sense because there are like, I think it's like 16 or so genera that are traditionally eaten by Jews who are keeping kosher. However, if you look at the rules in the Torah for what counts as kosher, giraffes would meet the definition. It's a little more complicated, right? Whatever.
The word science just means knowledge. It doesn't, it can be full of philosophy. It can be full of ideas, yes. But when you actually make your list at the end of the day of what works and doesn't, what equations function and help us build suspension bridges and computers and space shuttles, that's the part that actually we know works.
Okay. But the way we know it works is because when people base predictions on it, and then they go look to see if their predictions are true, they find that at least within the margin of error that they can use, they are true. The same is true for astrophysics, Charles Jackson. When people looked for protostars, they found protostars. They found stars that match the predicted traits of a protostar. Right? Like,
I don't think engineering really, like, in general, is science. Like, I also wouldn't say a textbook is science. A biology textbook is not science.
Engineering requires science to work, though. It uses principles derived from science to create, to be able to design.
Right. But, yeah, like, building the process of building a rocket? Like, I suppose you have to do calculations to figure out, the trajectory and how much materials it would need. But, like, I don't know. Weird. Whatever.
Yeah, but
Whatever.
The thing is, the same kind of equations in physics that tell us how to build bridges or how to build nuclear bombs are the same kinds of equations that tell us about stellar formation and what a protostar should look like. And they're the same kinds of predictions that then turn out to work when we actually go and look into the stars, right? Because people make predictions about what they're going to see in astronomy. And if they're right about what's out there, then that prediction is confirmed, and that provides evidence that prediction wasn't wrong, at least. It doesn't prove the hypothesis, because science doesn't deal in proof, but it's evidence against the falsity of the hypothesis. But with that, I think we're going to start wrapping things up here. We're almost at the 2-hour mark. Jackson, what do you have coming up?
Well, almost certainly, the normal Thursday show on my channel will be the next thing that I produce. We're watching a video about Stephen Meyer, John Lennox, and Michael Behe being stupid.
Shocker.
I know, crazy. I put out the Galapagos Finch's Tale recently.
I watched that. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was good times. Then the Peacock's Tale is next. Okay. I read a really interesting paper for anyone who hasn't seen the Galapagos Finch Tale about some finches that are speciating themselves into extinction. So if you want to know more about that, check out the video. It's a really weird concept, speciating yourself into extinction.
All right. Also, the real DM Wing says, "What does this button do for $5?" That is the super chat button, my friend. All right. So on this channel, I will open up a calendar. We can find out what's coming up next. I know. All right. So on Thursday, the 30th, we are going to be having the third and final episode of the ICR Lies About Dinosaurs series, where we're going to find out how it is that ICR justifies saying that Microraptor is a bird, whereas a animal that's in the same family, which means normally they would think of it as the same kind and having actual common ancestry, that is Velociraptor, is actually just a dinosaur and not a bird. So for some reason, Dromaeosauridae does not get to be a kind, according to ICR.
Didn't Minton say Changiraptor is a bird? He said it's exactly like Archaeopteryx.
Basically, he said that all of Dromaeosauridae, or possibly even all of Deinonychosauria, it wasn't clear, are just birds.
Okay, that's what it was. Okay.
Yeah. So, like, not just Changiraptor.
Whereas ICR is like, nah.
Yeah, it's actually, even AIG is still sometimes like, nah. They still like to say that Velociraptor isn't a bird, and they still have dromaeosaurs in the Creation Museum. They're
right.
Scaly dinosaur-looking things.
Right.
It's like they have no idea what they're doing. They'll have this guy who will say like, "Oh yeah, Deinonychosauria or Dromaeosauridae, it's not clear, are just birds."
Are you telling me that they like aren't consistent with their baramiology?
Yeah, not even a little bit.
Whoa.
I know.
Whoa, man.
Jessica for $4.99 says, "Bad Jackson's just jealous that science has made more accurate predictions than religion." Fire emoji. He might be. So that's on the 30th. On the 1st, I'm having a special. I'm doing a 1 million channel views special. Because just a few days ago, I hit 1 million channel views.
Woo.
Yeah, 1 million times some jerk has clicked on one of my videos.
It was me.
Yes.
I did it. I got you there, Dapper.
Thank you. No,
it took like 6 years.
I'm sure only some of the people who clicked on my videos are jerks. I know, because I've seen some of them in the comments. However, the vast majority of them, at least that I've interacted with, even in the comments, have been quite wonderful. So I really appreciate that. But yeah, so I'm going to have a few guests on. We're going to do some video or another. It'll probably go a little bit longer than normal. So that's coming out on the 1st, is a special for 1 million views. Then on Tuesday the 4th, we should be having a Kent with Bent. I don't know what number it is, like 107 or something, 108, I don't know. Then on Thursday the 6th, we will be having the animal or that series where they were the two old men, one of whom bragged about having basically used his rank to sexually harass a lower ranking officer in the military to get her to go on dates with him before he married her. Yeah. And then they just pointed out, hey, this animal is cool. That means evolution didn't happen. And we're going to have the supercut version of that come out on the 6th. And then on the 8th, don't know yet. Probably another Dapper Reacts. So there you go. That is what's coming up on this channel. That's, of course, if you're watching live or in the next day or two. If you're watching from the far future, well, hello. Welcome to the past. I hope that our quaint ways do not offend you. Although they probably will. And thanks for watching in the future. Anyway, we're going to get out of here. We're going to leave you with the end credits, which I hope you enjoy. And then if you are a channel member or a patron and you're in the Discord, which if you're not, just link your Discord to your YouTube or your Patreon, respectively, which should automatically get you into the Discord server. And then we're going to watch, hopefully, about 4 episodes of Power Rangers, starting with the last episode of Mighty Morphin Alien Rangers, then going into Power Rangers Zeo, which is actually one of my favorite seasons. So, there we go. Everybody, I hope I see you on Thursday. Bye!
Thanks for watching, but before you go, I just want to say a special thank you to my channel members and my patrons, especially those pledging $20 or above. Bob Knob, Work in Progress, Benthoven, Tapioca Weasel, Cynically Skeptic, Denny5252, Elron Teller, Farava, Ian Chen, Landon Knoll, Mabdy Babbity, San, Sphincter of Doom, and the Venerable Bede. As you probably know, YouTube is a very volatile platform, and from month to month my income on the channel can swing wildly. But the people you see on screen are directly supporting so that I don't have to worry too much about that, and the channel can keep going as it is, and perhaps even improving. If you'd like to join this team, there are links below to join the channel or in the description to join the Patreon. The Patreon starts as low as $1 a month, and the channel memberships start as low as $1.99 a month. On Patreon, you can even get a discount for pledging annually. If you do decide to pledge, you'll get access to an exclusive Discord server just for channel supporters, as well as early access to all of my pre-recorded videos, often up to 2 months in advance. Higher tiers will unlock even better perks. Now, if the annual or monthly pledge isn't right for you, but you still want to support the channel, there is a merch store down in the description, as well as an Amazon wishlist, just for me. And if financial support isn't something you can or want to do, then if you still want to help out the channel, please just like and share these videos and make sure you comment on them. It really helps the channel out. Thanks again for watching.